We've all heard the number, right? 21 million. That's it, the absolute hard-coded limit for Bitcoin. But have you ever stopped to really think about what happens when that last coin is finally mined? When the machine just stops printing? What does that world actually look like? Well, that's exactly what we're going to dig into.
This one question, it pulls in everything: technology, economics, the entire future of crypto. And to even begin to answer it, we have to go back to the start and ask why that famous number, 21 million, was chosen in the first place.
So this number wasn't just pulled out of a hat. Bitcoin's creator, the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto, wanted it to have a finite supply, a lot like gold. The idea was pretty simple: create digital scarcity, and that scarcity gives it value. But, a rule is only a rule if you can actually enforce it. So how is that limit totally locked in? Well, it all comes down to the engine that runs this whole thing.
Okay, so before we can jump to the end of the line, we need to understand the engine that's driving the train. And that engine is the blockchain. This is the tech that makes Bitcoin, well, Bitcoin. In the simplest terms, just think of a blockchain as a shared digital notebook. Every time a transaction happens, a new line gets added. But here's the kicker. Instead of one person holding the notebook, thousands of people all around the world hold identical copies, and they all get updated at the exact same time. This setup gives it some really incredible properties.
And these three features right here, this is where the magic is. Decentralized means no one person or company is in charge. Immutable means once something's recorded, you can't go back and change it. It's there forever. And transparent means anyone can look at the records. You put all that together and you get a system of trust that doesn't need a bank or a government in the middle.
So, let's say you send some Bitcoin. Your transaction goes on a little adventure. First, it gets broadcast to the whole network, then it waits in a digital line with a bunch of others, and then it gets picked up by someone called a miner. A miner's whole job is to bundle your transaction with others into a new block and add it to the chain. And this is how new coins are actually born.
See, that process of adding new blocks isn't just about keeping records straight. It's the one and only way new Bitcoin enters the world. And it's a process with a very specific built-in countdown timer. So how do miners get to add the next block? Well, they compete in a system called proof of work. You can basically imagine them all using super powerful computers to race to solve an insanely difficult math problem. The first one to find the solution wins. And what do they win? They get to add the next block to the chain. And for all that effort, they get a reward. And that reward is brand new Bitcoin, fresh off the digital press.
And this is where that countdown really kicks in. That reward I just mentioned, it doesn't stay the same. The code is written so that about every 4 years, the reward gets cut in half. It's a huge deal called the halving. As you can see, it started way back at 50 Bitcoin per block, and it's been shrinking ever since. This gradual slowdown is precisely why the very last coin won't be mined until somewhere around the year 2140.
So where are we right now? Well, the vast majority of all the Bitcoin that will ever exist is already out there. We're over 94% of the way to the finish line. But here's a little fun fact for you. The final number probably won't be exactly 21 million.
Yeah, it turns out there's this tiny little quirk in the code that calculates the mining reward. When the reward becomes a fraction of the smallest unit, which is called a Satoshi, the code is programmed to always round down. Because of all these tiny little roundings over more than a century, the final supply will end up just a little bit short of that perfect 21 million number.
So, we know the how and the when, and whether the final number is perfect or not, we know the rewards will run out. Which brings us right back to our original, massive question. What happens then?
Okay, so picture it. It's the year 2040. The last tiny fraction of a Bitcoin is mined. The creation of new coins just stops. Cold. Forever. But, and this is the absolute key, the network itself doesn't die. Not even close. In fact, it's designed specifically to keep on running long after the mint has closed its doors.
This all comes down to a really big shift in how the miners get paid. Right now, their income is mostly the block reward, that chunk of new Bitcoin. But after 2140, that reward, it's gone, vanished. Their entire income will have to come from the only other source they've ever had, transaction fees.
So you might be asking, why would miners keep working at all? Because their role is still absolutely essential. The network still needs them to process our transactions and add new blocks to the chain to keep it secure. So users will just pay them directly through fees to get their transactions included. The business model totally changes, but the job itself remains critical.
So this fundamental economic shift leads us to two big competing theories about what Bitcoin will actually be used for way out in the future. Is it going to be more like digital gold or more like digital pocket change?
Let's look at those two futures. In the digital gold scenario, Bitcoin isn't for buying your morning coffee. It's used rarely, but for really big, important transfers. Think settling accounts between major companies. Miners would make their living by charging high fees for these few but very valuable transactions. Then there's the pocket change idea. In this world, Bitcoin is used for everyday stuff. Miners would make their money from a massive volume of transactions with tiny fees, which would probably be possible because of Layer 2 networks built on top of Bitcoin.
And there's one last factor that makes the available supply even tighter than you think. It's estimated that maybe up to 20% of all Bitcoin is already permanently lost. We're talking forgotten hard drives, lost passwords. These millions of coins are just gone, forever. And that, of course, increases the scarcity and the value of all the coins that are left.
So that leaves us with the ultimate question. We know the system is designed to survive long after that final coin is mined. But what will it actually become? Will it be the digital equivalent of gold bars locked in a vault, a global store of value? Or will it become the everyday cash of the internet? The code is already written, but the story of what we do with it, well, that's still up to us.